We're here with Colin Meloy of the Decemberists. Thanks so much for taking the time, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
The King is Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Is it an obvious ode to the Smiths record?
I'm going to leave that up to you to decide.
You put out an EP of Smiths songs a few years back, and so, I mean...
Morrissey songs.
Morrissey songs.
Solo songs, yeah.
You'll leave it up to us to
yeah,
decide.
I'll leave that up to you.
It's not a concept record like Crane or Hazards was. It's much more a collection of great songs, right?
Mm.
Was that something that you guys definitely wanted to do, was just put together a song without...
Yeah, I think it was. It felt like the right thing to do. I mean, the songs as they were coming weren't suggesting any kind of big narrative. They felt like a bunch of different songs.
Right.
So it just made sense to make a record like that.
Is this the first record that Tucker Martine produced, or has he been with you guys
No,
before?
he did Hazards of Love,
Right.
All the EPs, the singles. And he also he was half of the production team on The Crane Wife.
Right. Because it just seems like the sound is that much bigger on this record. But
you think so?
Yeah.
Well, he is kind of a master.
Right. Don't Carry It All really sets the mood for the whole record, really gets going. Was that consciously, I mean, when you're tracking a record, figuring out the sequencing of what to put on the record, were you consciously aware that was the song you wanted to start the record with?
Yeah, I think I actually wrote that song last. That was the last song of the batch, and maybe it was like 3 or 4 months before we were going to go into the studio, and I started working on it, and it really felt like a first song. You know, I think a lot of songs stick out as being first songs. That was definitely one of them.
Well, Calamity song too, with that, just the beat of.
Oh right, yeah. I actually felt like a really good second song to me.
Oh, there you go. The record's doing really well. Like,
yeah.
Are you surprised at how well? I mean, as an artist, you probably set out to make great music and think about the commercial success of the record and hope it happens. But did you ever think it was going to be this well out of the gate?
No, I think we're all pretty shocked.
Yeah.
I mean, we are proud of the record and the work that we've done. I think we worked really hard on it. So it's nice to have that be paying off. But no, we didn't anticipate that at all. It's amazing.
Down by the Water, obviously the first song from the record. Bach and Gillian Welch help you on it, but to me, it's one of these songs that is so different from the rest of your music, with obvious influences, because it just is so commercial without trying to be commercial, right?
Yeah. Potentially. I mean, I feel like I have a tendency towards writing songs like that, because I grew up loving power pop, in its many forms, and so it feels second nature to me to write in that way.
The influences are obvious, but particularly on this record, there's a lot of Neil Young and there's a lot of other artists that... Were you listening to anything specific when you wrote this record?
I don't know. I was listening to a lot of different stuff. I think that Neil Young played a big part of it for sure. I mean, as much of what I was listening to at the time, but also recollections, and I'm constantly going back to those records. Certainly R.E.M., The Reckoning, when they remastered it, and it sounds so good, I think that was a good time to kind of revisit that record.
Too, there's a little bit of Murmurs on the record.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about what's going on in the music scene in general, and not just like the indie rock scene. And there seems to be, between Iron and Wine and the Avett Brothers and Band of Horses and even My Morning Jacket, who you guys are always been friends with, but this less than reluctancy to go back to some of those sounds of the 70s and to be part of the Americana and to be accepted, in media for this stuff. Is that, again, anything, is it just cyclical that's happening now, that those sounds are coming through again?
I think so. I think that honestly, there was, in the late 90s, there was kind of an alt country bubble.
Yeah.
And I think as a music listener at that time and kind of a peripheral musician, kind of dabbling in my own stuff, but I think I kind of burnt out on it, and stuff like, Belle and Sebastian at that time was more exciting to me than some of the stuff that was happening in sort of the Americana vein. And I think there's been a shift and a refocus. And I think there's some new attitudes out there about what you can do with American music. You know.
Some people were saying that it's just a backlash to all that evil pop that's coming out there.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's something. I don't know that I don't listen to enough evil pop to be able to backlash against it.
Yeah.
So I couldn't say.
As a guy who listens to a lot of Grateful Dead music, I was really intrigued by the Road Jimmy cover.
Uh-huh.
What made you guys decide to do that and that specific song?
Well, I've been kind of an anti-Grateful Dead person for a lot. Spent a lot of my life.
So you're the opposite of me.
I might be the opposite of you.
Right.
I mean, I have spent most of my life the opposite of you.
Okay.
And I think it was sort of stoking a kind of an irrational hatred.
Right.
Sort of a reaction to it. And I think I was basing that reaction on, a handful of maybe more of the popular songs.
Right. Skeletons in the Closet and that whole greatest hits collection type thing.
Maybe, and some of the Bobby songs,
Right. Careful now.
I know, sorry. I won't get it. I know that everybody has their own thing, but Grateful Dead had always been on the radar, and I knew, that there was good stuff to be found. And actually my wife, who's an avowed Deadhead, decided to just make me a mix recently and just have this playlist. And there were songs that I'd never heard, and I was hearing, especially it was sort of that late 60s, really early 70s era where I suddenly was hearing, echoes of the bands that I loved in that. So it was obviously their influence had just transcended whether or not people tend to wear it on their sleeves or not.
Right.
But certainly Wake of the Flood being part of that, and Road Jimmy in particular, I think is a great song. It's just a really pretty, gorgeous song.
I got to ask you, it seems like it was recorded live off the floor.
Yeah.
And towards the back end, when you're singing probably the second or last chorus, you kind of goof a little.
Oh, do I?
Yeah. You don't remember that?
Well,
or you have a bit of a giggle?
Oh, yeah. I think, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was recorded. It was recorded while Autumn DeWild was walking around taking pictures of us, and we were just kind of playing through it, and so it was very organic in that way.
It's great because I always laugh just when I hear that one part because I can tell that you guys are having a lot of fun and that it does tend to go on for a bit like some good Grateful Dead songs do. So I can tell that we got to do the chorus again.
Right.
But now we know that there was another person walking around bugging you.
Yeah.
What are you listening to?
What am I listening to right now? Gosh, what do I have on the hi-fi these days?
Or in the bus or whatever.
And the bus, I don't really listen to a whole lot of music on tour. That new Iron and Wine record is really great and really inventive. It's so funny. You hear everybody was like, "Oh, it's like AM Gold," but it's not. It's not like anything.
No, I guess the single, and I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but it sounds a little like 10cc, like with the chords. And
I mean, you can kind of hear like there's some Rhodes and the backing vocals and stuff. But as far as I can tell, it's kind of a more novel way of arranging a record than I've heard in a long time.
Dear Avery, speaking of Rhodes and piano and stuff, is it piano or is it mostly pedal steel on that, or is it a combination?
I can't remember. That's pedal steel, playing it out.
Yeah, playing it out.
Two pedal steels going at once.
It just sounds so familiar, and I think that's what I gravitate to it. But it's just a great, beautiful track.
Yeah,
June Hymn too is just a beautiful song.
Oh, thank you.
January Hymn's beautiful too, and in light of what's going on out here today, it's apropos. But is it still very collaborative, the music, when you're sitting down, or is it mostly in your head and then you bring ideas to everybody? Or
well, obviously everybody, Funk is writing his own pedal steel parts. I mean, there's maybe some guidance in the studio, but for the most part, soloing instruments like that, everybody's doing their own thing.
Right.
And everybody's gonna, but sometimes I'll have demoed it and have put a guitar line or a bass line, and that happens. This record was pretty heavily demoed. I did a lot of work at home, but in the end, I always say it's just a real basic blueprint and can be thrown out and challenged at any time.
And is that what happens in the live scenario where you guys are challenging some of this stuff?
Oh, in the live scenario, I mean, the parts are the same, but solos change.
Solos change, and you need
Yeah, and
stuff.
it adapts and it changes as it goes.
Right. More touring of the record. I'm sure we'll have another single at radio soon. Given how great the record's doing, right?
Yeah, I think This Is Why We Fight is getting some airplay.
Right.
And more touring, that's happening right now as we speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And then is the throughout the spring and then into the summer and festival dates and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's great. Well, continued success, man, and thank God that finally something is broken a little bit bigger for you guys.
Oh yeah, it's great. I mean, I wasn't discontent before,
no,
so
absolutely.
it's been nice.
It just must feel good that a wider audience is probably hearing the music than has never heard the music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Thanks for taking the time, man. Really
yeah,
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Explore Music wears English Laundry apparel.